Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the school committee meeting for this evening, Monday, April 27th, 2020. Roll call, please.
Kathleen Amaral.
Here.
Chris Oliver.
Here.
Carol Karafotis.
Here.
Shannon Jenkins.
Here.
John Nunes.
Yep.
Thank you. So for everyone listening in, we know by now we're all home and we're able to meet in this way because Governor Baker suspended some provisions in the open meeting law, allowing us to conduct our meetings remotely. In addition to watching live, which I hope that people are accessing through our Dartmouth High School TV Media YouTube channel, this will be rebroadcast on DCTV channel 9 and 18 on Wednesday and Thursday at 5 o'clock, Friday at 6 a.m., and Saturday at 8 a.m. and Sunday at 2 p.m. In regards to public comment, we may be familiar by now that I ask that you send your comments by include your name in an email to Kathleen Genthner, which you can find her email at the bottom, I think the description of this live stream, and we will open public comment around 6:45. First, however, I will turn it over to Dr. Gifford, who has some exciting news and introduction to share with us. So without further ado, Dr. Gifford, if you don't mind.
Sure, thank you. So tonight we are welcoming the person that we've chosen as our director of music. As you know, Mr. Kingsland is retiring after many, many years of wonderful service to the district. And we had an interview committee that interviewed a number of candidates and then sent 3 candidates forward to a final interview. And we chose a person who I think some of you might be familiar with. I know Mr. Nunes is. Ian Flint, who is here. I know he's going to pop on to introduce himself and talk about himself. But we loved his interview. We love the fact that he has worked for the Dartmouth Public Schools in prior years. And that I think I shared with the committee that the first thing that he said to me during my interview with him was that he had his vision set on assuming Mr. Kingsland position at one time or another, because he loved being in Dartmouth and he had that vision, and then went off to pursue other opportunities to prepare himself to assume that position. So I thought that was a really perfect statement for someone that was looking to take over for someone, as we all know, is very respected and has done a fabulous job for the Dartmouth Public Schools. So Ian, if you're here, if you can pop in, I'd love to have you talk about yourself and tell the committee what you've been doing. They're delighted to meet you and talk with you.
Yeah, I'm originally from Pennsylvania. I grew up in Northeast Pennsylvania at a small town. I went to college outside of Philadelphia at Westchester University. And my first job out of college was at Dartmouth Public Schools about 15 years ago. I started out in the brass specialist position at Dartmouth. I spent 1 year at Dartmouth in that position. There were some budget cuts and I ended up going to Westport for 2 years to be the high school band and choral director there. Spent 2 years there. And then as soon as the position opened up again at Dartmouth, I came back to Dartmouth for another 5 years. So I actually worked with the marching band at Dartmouth for all 9 years. I lived on the South Coast though, so really familiar with the program. Spent a long time working in all the different aspects of the program with, marching band, jazz band program, everything that happens there at Dartmouth. And then about 5 years ago, I decided to move to Vermont. I pursued a position up here that was a head director position where I kind of supervised the music department for the school and oversee everything with scheduling and kind of the nuts and bolts that go into putting together a music program. Much different from my job at Dartmouth, where I was mainly working as a teacher. It gave me a lot of administration experience and really learned what it takes to, handle the management part of the music department at a school. So the school I'm at here, Bellows Free Academy in Vermont, we started with 6 band students and 15 choral students 5 years ago. We have over 170 in the band program and over 200 in the choral program currently. The school is a K-12 building with only 900 students total. So we have a high percentage of students that participate in our music program, and it's ready to go for the next people that come in. They hired a position to replace me, and then they're hiring a secondary director to fill the vacancy that was left because of the director that filled my position. So that's what I've been doing for the last 5 years. Really exciting times up here. Hate to leave here, but the opportunity at Dartmouth was just too good to pass up on.
That's great.
Thank you. Does anybody have any comments or questions? Mr. Nunes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ian, good to see you again, as always, my friend.
Yep.
But it's good to have you here. And I mean, I can remember when you were here, you were very level-headed and excellent at what you did with the drill writing and the visual designs and the backdrops. So it was always good to know what we were going into, and your work ethic with the students and the respect that the students had for you and have for you is fantastic and second to none. Something that I thought about, and I should have, when I talked to you a couple of weeks ago after you had been hired, I should have kind of given you the heads up, but something I think you need to think about. In my tenure as a longtime Dartmouth resident, graduate of Dartmouth and such, we've had only 3 band directors in my tenure, in my time here. And one was the late Eddie DeRosia that we used to call Mr. D, and Gil Madrigal, it was Mr. Mad, and Bill Kingsland, it was BK. Have you thought about what the kids are going to be able to use for initials for you?
Yeah, I always wonder that. Like, I don't know if the kids are going to quite latch onto that. I think one thing that's odd is I've had a lot of students that were former students of mine. It's only been 5 years that have reached out, and they know me as Mr. Flint. So we'll see if they come up with something.
Yeah.
But I'm waiting to find out. Seems like they always do.
But seriously, it is welcome aboard. It's good to have you back, and look forward to another great season. You got big shoes to fill right down the line, my friend. So anything I can do, you know where to find me.
Yeah, thank you.
Chris?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to take the opportunity, Ian, to congratulate you on the position. And I had the opportunity, as did all of us, to look over your resume, and I think it pretty much speaks for itself. I love to see you were a Dartmouth employee in the past. You're from the South Coast area. You have that experience. You went up, you did what you needed to do to get some administration experience, which speaks for itself as well, I think. And I love to see your resume and all the I don't know if I'm using the correct terminology, but marching band processions that you worked on throughout the country. I believe that's what it was, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have a design firm. So I designed for about 40 different schools across the country every year. So that's the thing I've been doing on the side. Really, Dartmouth helped me build that
Okay.
from my experience with Dartmouth. So yeah, I've been doing that for a pretty solid 10 years now. And I think one of the strengths I'm going to bring back to the program, just that
Sure.
experience I have with all these other schools. And I've seen so many different models on how schools work and why things are successful just by talking to other directors.
No, I think that's great that you have that in your back pocket. So like Mr. Nunes said, you got some big shoes to fill, but nonetheless, welcome aboard. We're happy to have you.
Thank you.
Carol?
Yes, I just want to also congratulate you for your getting this position. And I just want you to know, on a personal level, when I mentioned who was hired as the new music director after you were announced, I was talking to some teachers from Dartmouth who had worked with you, and they were so excited. The first thing they said was, "You made I." So you have a great reputation here with the people you've worked with, And I expect nothing but the best and the wonderful things that you're going to do in the future. So welcome aboard.
Oh, thank you.
Shannon?
I guess it's my turn now to say welcome. We're super excited. As you know, we're super proud of our music program here in Dartmouth. And, I can't wait to see where you take the program, and wish you continued success as you take over. So thanks for coming back.
Yep. Excited to be back on the South Coast too. It's been a while. In 5 years, I've only visited 3 times. It was kind of weird when I came for the interview because I hadn't really been back in town. It was a really unique experience to be back, and I'm pretty excited to be back by the water and everything.
Mr. Nunes?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. And just so the committee and everybody out there is aware, when, the band, we would run into Ian at, several shows throughout the time he's been gone here. He'd always come over to see how we were doing and say hello to everybody. And the students that he had in the program until the time he left would always come running over to him and, say hello and how you doing. And he always took the time to talk to them. So, again, that's the type of person that we are getting for this program.
Thank you for that, Mr. Nunes. Yeah, I just want to welcome you back and excited to have you. As everyone said, big shoes to fill for sure, but referencing your experience and I think the collective excitement to have you back. Looking forward to what you can accomplish with our students. So thank you.
Great.
And congratulations.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ian. We'll be in touch soon.
Great. Sounds great.
All right.
Thanks, Ian.
Take care.
Yep. Bye.
Thank you. Great. Okay, so we have a couple minutes. Maybe we'll just go, if it's okay with the committee, to the approval of minutes before we open it up for public comment. Would
Can you
that
remind
work?
people of the address before, so they want 2 minutes, they can send in if they have
Yeah,
comments?
thank you. Yeah. So so for public comment, if you have something that you would like to share, a statement, we ask that send your comment via email to Kathleen Genthner. That's KATHLEENGENTHNER at schools.org. When we open for public comment, if you, the comment would have to be on something that's on our agenda for this evening. So we invite you to, and we hope you take up that opportunity, and we'll give it a few more minutes, and then we'll leave it open for about 10 minutes we've allotted to give time for people to access their email and send in their comment to. And Kate will read your comments live for us to not comment on, but just to take into consideration for any further deliberation regarding the item on the agenda potentially. So again, that's Kathleen with a K, Genthner, GENTHNER at dartmouthschools.org. With that said, we do have a couple minutes, so I would entertain motion to approve some of the minutes. So we have the executive session minutes of March 23rd. We have the regular and executive session minutes of April 6th. And we also have the emergency executive session minutes, our April 13th executive meeting, emergency meeting. So I'll entertain a motion separating those, of course, appropriately.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the executive session minutes of March 23rd, 2020, and the executive session minutes of April 6th, 2020, and the emergency executive session minutes of April 13th, 2020, with the stipulation that they be held until the matter for which they are intended is completed.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Chris, you have to unmute. I think, do you have a comment, Chris?
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I got too many, I have too many tabs open.
It's
I
the
would
body
just want,
language.
I'm just wondering if I should separate out that emergency session, because I would abstain from that one.
Okay,
Could we do that?
I'm good with that, Madam Chair. So if we just go back and do the March 23rd and April 6th
A
with the same
second.
caveat.
Okay. Second for that.
I'll second that.
Okay. All right. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. And next, I would then entertain a motion specific to the emergency executive session minutes of April 13th.
I'll
So moved.
second that.
So move, Madam Chair, with the stipulation that they be held until the matter for which they were intended is completed.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Carol. Okay. Any discussion? No. So we have all in favor
Aye.
Aye.
and abstentions?
I will abstain.
Okay. Thank you. And so now, do we? Yeah. Now I'll entertain a motion for the regular session minutes for that April 6th meeting.
Good
So
job.
moved.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. So now it is 6:46 and we will officially open this up. We'll have some awkward silence unless people have already submitted public comment on an agenda item. But I'll repeat again for those just tuning in that if you have any comment to be or statement around anything on our agenda for this evening, please email to Kathleen Genthner, Kathleen with a K, Genthner, GENTHNER @dartmouthschools.org. And please add your name to your email and we will take your comments into consideration.
I have not received anything at this time, Kathleen.
For folks tuning in, if you would like to provide comment on any of the agenda items, I ask that you submit your comment through email to Kathleen Genthner @dartmouthschools.org. Her email is listed below the live stream, and we are allowing some time, people time to do that if so choose.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Chris.
just thinking, what if we move this item to the end of the agenda so we gave people a little bit more time so we wouldn't have to be waiting around? Just a suggestion.
How does everyone else feel? I'm fine with that as well. How do folks feel? If we reopen public comment later on in the agenda, giving people time to, and again, public comment, we don't answer the statements made, but we just take them into consideration.
Fine with me.
I'm good
Okay.
with that, Madam Chair.
Okay, with that, for those of you tuning in, stay tuned. You still have time to email Kathleen Genthner @dartmouthschools.org if you would like to provide public comment on an agenda item. Okay. So with that, we'll move now to old business. So first on our list, we have the fiscal year 21 budget. So if, oh, I have my, okay, I've got everything. Mr. Kiley, would you mind if I opened it up to you for any updates and then we'll open it for discussion?
Sure. Thank you, Mrs. Emerald. So good evening, everyone. So We have, I've recommended, and you should have the motions to approve the budget tonight. I've, at this point, not recommended any change to the budget. We've been talking to the town side of government and attempting to ascertain, where this is going to go for FY21. There's so much unknown right now, both at the federal level, at the state level, at the local level. It's impossible to understand or predict exactly what's going to happen with funding for next year. We have but the town is attempting to continue with the process and stay on track as best they can. They still intend to have town meeting in June, so it may not be in person, it may be remote. They're working on that. So we're still trying to comply with that process. And I think to do so, we've just got to go with the best information we have at the moment, which is we should maintain the budget that we're currently requesting and forward that on through the process. The Finance Committee has asked us to appear before them tomorrow night. So I think it's especially important that you move forward tonight with a budget number. So that's where we are. It's some things are coming into focus, and we'll talk about some of those in executive session tonight in terms of some of the uncertainties that we face. But unfortunately, this other dramatic change in revenue to the local and state and federal level are going to be a problem for us. But at the moment, we should move forward.
Thank you. Do any of my committee members have anything that they would like to? Chris, go ahead, Chris.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Kiley, for that update. Just really quickly, this budget does not include any new positions, right? That's where we left it the last time we spoke about it. There's no new positions in what we're putting forward.
Level service, no new positions.
Thank you.
Sorry, I gotta get the gallery view here. Who would like to, anybody? John?
Well, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Kiley, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the positions that are coming in are being replacing positions that we're eliminating, correct?
Yes. So when so the town has enacted sort of a non-essential spending budget freeze, was what the selectmen voted for, and the town administrator shared that with me before they brought it to the select board. And what I let him know was that there were positions that are essential for us to fill to operate next year, and that we would be doing so. And I've not heard any issue with that. So, we had Mr. Flint earlier tonight, and we have others that we will be filling.
Thank you. Does anyone else have? Thank you, John, for asking that. And no other comments, questions? Okay. Well.
Madam Chair, would you like the motions?
Yeah, I have. I have the motions in front of me. And go ahead, John.
Would you like me to read them?
Sure, you're so good at this.
I make a motion to approve the FY21 budget appropriation for Potter School classroom teachers in the amount of $1,717,739.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nunes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
You second it?
Me, Shannon.
Shannon. Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, with that, so this would be all in favor, right?
Yep.
Okay, I'm hearing an echo. I apologize. Okay, So all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
I will abstain.
thank you, Chris. One abstention. So thank you for that, Ms. Nunes. Now I will entertain a motion to approve the fiscal year 21 budget appropriation for the total budget, excluding those items voted previously in the previous motion, in the amount of $43,868,996.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right, go.
Second by Shannon. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, opposed? Okay, and no abstention. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
all.
you for all your hard work, Mr. Kiley, in this ever-changing, very complex time where there's a lot of unknowns. We really appreciate your due diligence to doing your best to make sure we do our best and for all the kids in our community.
Thank you for supporting us.
Okay,
No problem.
all right.
Not an issue.
So next we will move on to new business. And so the first item under new business is the revisions to the student handbook. And so I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Roy about this.
We have a few updates to the handbook this year based on some of our policy updates, if you recall. So a couple of the page numbers are off. So on page 21, in our educational stability, if you remember, the update was required by the coordinated program review to include extracurricular activities. We do fund those, but they wanted to make sure that it was explicitly written in the policy. So that part's been updated. On page, it's actually page 28. If you remember, we updated the restraint policy to make a statement in the final paragraph regarding the fact that we did not endorse the medical or mechanical restraint in any instance. The other two are just annual updates. We have an update to include the calendar you voted and the listing of principals to include the change at Potter. And that's it.
Madam Chair,
You're muted.
you're muted, Kathleen.
Okay, I'm unmuted, but I'm still trying to flip back to find my Zoom from my drive here. Okay, so John?
Yeah. Just a quick question, general in nature. Have we, the early childhood director for Cushman and the assistant principal at the middle school, is that in process or is that started yet?
The early childhood director position is still in process.
Okay.
We have gone through the interviews, et cetera, and we're working with a couple of the candidates at this point. So as soon as I know positive details, I'll let you know. The assistant principal at the middle school, we are holding off on that right now due to the budget issues that we're not quite sure where that's going to land. So just to be cautious, and as we see how that ends up, we're just holding off on that position right now.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm good, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any comments? Chris?
Thank you. In regards to the middle school principal, I would just ask that we really take that into consideration. I think that's a position that we need, and I would really hate to see that go.
Thank you, Chris.
I have to agree with you, Mr. Oliver. Again, we just want to see how everything falls out, not knowing what's happening, but given the number of students in that school, as well as as we all know, educator evaluation is a huge piece of those positions, and supervision, the curriculum development that goes on. So I agree with you, and hopefully we'll be able to fill that position, but just to be careful, cautious at this point, until we know more. We're just holding off on that posting right now.
Okay.
Shannon?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with Mr. Oliver that it is an important position, but I would also agree with Dr. Gifford. I think we're going to have to be making some really difficult choices next year. And so it's better to just wait and to not have to hire then fire someone, because we didn't really talk about this, but Mr. Kiley, I'm sure, can tell us lots of tales of woe. And we've been looking at it at our campus about how bad next year is going to be. And I think that there's going to be a lot of these sort of tough choices that we're going to have to make next year, unfortunately.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Chris?
Yeah, just to echo Dr. Jenkins as well, I think, you know, the big picture here is really looking at reallocation resources. And I think that's something that, you know, I'm sure we'll be hearing about in the future, the near future. Not just Dartmouth. Dartmouth's not immune to this. We're just like every other municipality and K-12 educational institution and higher ed institution as well. That we may need to look at reallocation of resources. And I'm sure that's a discussion that this committee will probably have at some point.
Anyone else? No.
I just wanted to echo what what Shannon and Chris said. The work that's been done at the middle school has been wonderful. It's changed the whole culture there. And when you think also particularly about Mr. Robidoux, just to think that someone like that could leave and no one would come in to replace him, it's not a message we want put out there, but we have to because of the circumstances we're in. He's done a tremendous job, as has the whole staff. But it's amazing how it's transformed the middle school, the work they've been doing. So just my 2 cents.
Wait a minute, that's amazing.
John?
No, and I agree. I mean, my concern becomes the fact that, and I've been around long enough to see this happen, is once you cut something from the budget, to get it back really, I mean, takes more than an act of Congress type of deal. And I'm being facetious, but you know, you cut a position, and to try and get any position back becomes very difficult because you can always find the dollar to go someplace else. So just want to make sure we tread lightly.
Thank you, Mr. Nunes. Okay. So with that, in regards to the revisions to the student handbook, we were looking for a vote from us on those revisions. Well, I would entertain them. I would, ask for, I see John looking like he's ready to make a motion.
What?
No.
So moved. Make a motion to approve the FY 2021 student handbook as presented.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Aye. Anybody opposed?
No, we are voting. I'm in favor.
Okay, yes. Am I muted again? So I'll do that again. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, no one opposed, passes. Thank you very much. And so next we have superintendent's update. Lots to update, lots of things I'm sure you'll be sharing with us, lots of changes. I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Gifford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So before we get into the discussion about some of the remote learning plan issues, I just want to mention once again that a very positive note that, as you saw, U.S. News and World Report named our high school as one of the best high schools across the country. And I'm hoping that you read through some of the criteria that they use to determine this. And I won't go through that, but there is about 6 areas that they look at for high school, and Dartmouth High was named one of those. And I think there were about 24,000 across the nation, and we were around 1,300 across the nation, and in the 130 or so in the state. So that was a good positive during this time of a lot of negative. So we were happy to see that.
I just ask, do you have to submit your name for that or
No.
no?
No, they just do the review themselves and then look at, obviously, some of the information comes from the Department of Ed across the country, and they look at the number of AP classes that are offered, the graduation rate, state assessment scores, et cetera. So it's a number of items, and judge them. And we were just happy to see that.
Yeah, wonderful.
So on another note, with all of these changes and the end of school happening, we had to come to some consensus as to how we were finishing up our educator evaluation. So we've met with our union a couple of times, and we think we've come to a nice agreement on that. Just about, folks being able to finish up those evaluation sessions, give the final reports, whether it's a summative or a formative, to folks, and move them along. So we don't see any issues with that and should be able to finish that up. So that was some good work that went on. Relative to the remote learning plan and those kinds of things, as you know, with the extended school closure, the Department of Ed just released updated what they're calling prerequisite standards. And this came out, I believe it was Friday night, because I didn't see anything Friday afternoon, but I did see it Saturday morning. So their updated standards. The message from the commissioner had been that they were going to identify grade level standards, as again, they call them prerequisite standards, that they were recommending that students should know to be able to move on to the next grade. So with that in mind, and once we saw that come out, although we had already started the conversation before that came out from the commissioner, we have created a template that we're using for all grade levels to identify what standards have been taught, what standards we can address, because I should back up a little bit, because this is about new teaching, new content. As before, it was simply, providing enrichment activities based on the previously taught standards. So we're moving along because of the extended school closure. So we've created a template, and that's being shared at all grade levels. Some of the work that's already been done, for example, the Director of Teaching and Learning met with our coaches this morning, who will then help, like the elementary schools, et cetera. And I have to say, some of our teachers are way ahead of us already. They're already looking at the work. They're already identifying the standards they've taught. We've met all day along with folks, including Friday, with representatives. This morning we met with middle school, elementary, and high school folks early this morning to continue to come to agreement on how to roll this out, how to make sure each school has an understanding of what the direct teaching could look like, whether it's a live session, a combination of live sessions of teaching and taped sessions, et cetera, because they're collaborating in teams. So they might have one teacher tape a lesson and be able to share that. We'll have a live session. So we can't be specific on every Tuesday this will happen or that will happen, because there's so many variables involved with the office hours that are remaining, the enrichment activities that folks are creating. Our main point to people is, our teachers, is that it's live and taped, so it's direct teaching of new content, which we are identifying throughout the schools. And it looks like we're in very good shape. We've covered most of the standards that DESE is recommending. And also that the check-ins with kids continue to take place, because kids really need to see their teachers and need to get feedback and need to, especially now with the new content, be able to say, I need help with this, that, or etc. With that said, we also have some updates to the high school, which I gave you some of these draft documents that are going forward. The high school has worked hard on trying to get more kids involved in the activities that we're offering. So just as before, nothing's changing with grade term 1 and 2 as far as the scores that students have already acquired, their ability to make up those lessons, resubmit, relearn, connect with their teacher on those activities that they may have not done well on, etc. Still stands, and students have been made aware of that. Teachers, I've already talked to one today. They're receiving some requests for those updated to be able to resubmit activities and projects. So only term 1 and 2 grades that have already been done will be counted for their GPA. And then going on, now that we know we have extended learning happening, how they're handling that is we're going to be asking students to be where we, up until May 4th, because we weren't sure when we were going back or if, we were just offering those enrichment activities. And to be honest, you know, there was no accountability for students. We were hoping and encouraging and meeting with them and having them do them. Now we're asking, or at least providing a parameter per se, where 2/3 of the enrichment or the activities or the new learning, the new content, we were asking that we're encouraging and telling students they need to complete 2/3 of those. It's like a 65% to complete them and get feedback from their teachers, not to be counted as a grade or GPA or towards their GPA from terms 1 and 2. However, if they do the 2/3, they would get a pass for this second half of the year, which would just show up on their transcript. But again, not account for whether they pass or fail the class based on their first terms 1 and 2 grades. So we're still giving students every opportunity to maintain their GPA, maintain their pass of the course. We will still give them credit for the course. It's just what's going to be on the transcript. If a student just determines they're not going to participate at all in this last term,
Mary Crooks.
Oh, they would get a fail on their a fail mark on the transcript for term 4. But again, I have to reiterate, I know it's complex. It's a crazy time, but we want the first grading period to count towards that final GPA and whether they get credit for the class. Those are some important things. As I've said before, the work has been ongoing all week since the commissioner announced last week, and the governor as well. We've had numerous meetings. The lead teachers have been involved at the high school. We've met with the union folks many times, where everyone's in agreement that the work needs to take place, especially the new teaching. It's just trying to determine what's fair and appropriate and doable for everybody. So we're still kind of working on that. I know that the high school has a 7:30 a.m. meeting, which I'll be in attendance as well. I'm just looking through my notes to see if there's, and one of the big things I want to mention with the high school that they're going to be doing, which parents and students will be made aware of once we come to this final determination, is that they'll be looking for the students to do what they're calling reflection activity at the last week of their school, to be able to wrap up their learning for this time, and they can then show their learning in various, whatever they choose. It can be a presentation, it can be a paper to their teacher, a multimedia presentation with video clips, etc. Talking about things of what they learned from these power standards. The high school is just trying to wrap up the learning for kids and have teachers have something in hand to be able to give them feedback on. Could be a written reflection or any other format that's approved and discussed with their teacher. We also have discussed the end of year activities. I sent you some draft options that we've talked with, the high school has talked with the team, also with the students. I also attended a student meeting last week on Friday with the student leaders. And I know that Mr. Tebow had another meeting today, and I think they're coming to a good conclusion pretty soon. I know the faster we do that, the better, because people are anxious and need to know, especially about graduation. So we have some good ideas there, and hope to get that done very quickly. So those are kind of the big updates. I know I sent you some documents, and I know it's complex, but I think we're in a very good place.
Dr. Karafotis?
How are they going to deal with the issue of equity?
That's a very big question. And right now we have a couple of highlights, and I should have mentioned them. I actually had them jotted down and didn't push my paper aside. Of course, Lori and Beth are working really hard on that issue. We are related service teachers are providing services with obviously virtually to our kids. They've created those remote learning plans that they have for the individual, the IEPs. The interventionists are working with our classroom teachers. So they have links on the Google Classroom for the teachers. And of course, our special ed teachers are working with general ed teachers on differentiating. But you're right. I mean, it's never going to be 100% like we would like. I 100% agree.
Do all our students have access to the internet?
Honestly, as far as I know, I haven't heard any. We've reached out and reached out and reached out. And there have been a handful of students, I have to say, that haven't really been in contact with our principals, and our principals continue to try that. I understand what you're asking. And the other thing I did want to update, that now that we have the extended school closure, our special ed department is working to provide the next step, which would be virtual team meetings that we'll be starting, but not before we have some clear-cut parameters and also some training for our teachers to help them to be able to do that. So that's going to be our next step in that world.
Dr. Jenkins?
Thank you.
Thank you. So I think I'm unmuted. You can hear me, right? Yep. I share the same concerns as Dr. Karafotis, and particularly in light of the data that you showed us, that about a third of the students are sort of not regularly accessing, right, sort of online
right.
And, you know, particular concern for me is this the 27th of February, and 38% of our high schoolers haven't logged in and are not necessarily taking advantage of options to improve their and so I don't wonder if that May 1st deadline is premature, in part because students may start checking back in. They may hear, well, on the 4th, everything starts to count. And now they're going to log in and find out, oh, my opportunity to improve has passed. So because we have such a high volume of students who haven't logged in or haven't been regularly doing classwork, I'd like to see some consideration of extending that. I'm a nag, so I nag my kids like all the time. Have you contacted your teachers? Let's work a plan. Like, let's do that. Students who don't have those supports at home need to do that. And I'd also like to hear, what are we doing to reach? Can you explain in more detail, particularly now, right, when they've got to do these things to progress to the next grade? It's easy when a kid doesn't show up. We know that, you know, we send out a plan and we can really follow up. What are we doing for that approximately third of the students who aren't regularly checking in and doing these sorts of things? What's our plan for that?
Up to this point, I have to say, especially I've heard from a number of the principals for kids, just what you're speaking about. And we've actually even tried to reach out through district level as well to try various phone numbers, etc. I have to say it's very few on the elementary level. Obviously, as you can see from the data over the last 7 days, that's what that data showed, that those, whatever it was, 27% or something of the high school Um,
38%.
Was it 38%? I'm trying to look at my data now.
Yeah, 38.
Yeah, but the guidance counselors at the high school level, and I know we've been in touch with the director, should be making those continued contacts. But I think you're right that with the shift in the expectations, it's a bigger issue because it wasn't that way before the May 4th deadline.
Yeah,
So,
and I'm
yeah.
just concerned that some of the students who haven't been checked,
Right,
are hearing optional,
right.
and then the ship has sort of sailed for them.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I don't wonder whether we ought to concern that. And then the only other thing consider that I might add is there is a lot of angst about the graduation option.
Yeah.
And whatever we do, we're going to end up pissing off a lot of people. I mean, there's no good choices here. There really aren't.
Right.
You think allowing some ability for parents to have some input, like a short survey or something, that doesn't mean we have to be bound by what they say, but I think people want to feel like they have a voice in this a little bit, might go a long way towards heading off, right? People saying, well, I wasn't consulted and I don't like that decision. They're still not going to like the decision, but at least maybe allowing for some input will, let them see the results. That if it's really split, then they can see that not everyone's happy, and they can understand what a tough decision that is. But I think allowing some public input, it's not a binding vote, but just we're trying to get a sense of the community, would go a really long way to assuaging some of those fears.
Thank you, Dr. Jenkins.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Ms. Oliver?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with Dr. Jenkins. I love the idea of putting on a survey for the parents. But on another note, can we just talk a little bit about what we've already kind of touched upon with the numbers that you shared with us about students that have not logged in? Now, when you say maybe you may have said this already, maybe I just missed it, but when you're saying students have not logged in, are you saying these are students that not only have they not logged into a device, but have they made any kind of communication with their teachers or with anyone in the school, Dr. Gifford?
All I know is the data we're able to accumulate from our device, our data system.
Yep.
And that specific data was logged into their accounts within the last 7 days.
Okay. So that's from the devices.
Yes. And I have not heard from, and Jonathan, I know he's on board. He can probably help with how he got the data because he helped us out with that. But I know we have had a couple of principals who have only mentioned a few students that have had no contact at all. In 1 or 2, I know 2 in particular, we reached out from district level and did then get communication with the parent.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, that's all I know from the elementary.
Okay.
Yeah, so I couldn't speak to specific other than the data I have.
So I guess my concern is, and like you said, maybe that's not the case, and maybe there are more students that are communicating with their teachers and through other means.
Right.
But almost 1,200 students that have not logged in, that's a scary number to me.
Mm-hmm.
But we're saying maybe it's a lot less than that because students are actually communicating with their teachers in some other way, shape, or form. But I would hope at the very least that our staff, our building administrators, our outreach workers, and I know to some extent they're doing this, they're reaching out to families that are right now, for lack of a better term, unresponsive. They're haven't been communicating, they haven't been engaging. So I hate to see any student be left behind. So I would really urge you and your team to do whatever you can to make sure that we are, and I want to believe that for the most part we are, reaching out to all students, especially the ones that if we can't get in contact with them, then like you said, whether it's a phone number or reaching out to them via email or through a phone call.
Right.
And then just on another note, I noticed just out of curiosity, I had forgotten what Mr. Kiley had said. For our preschool students, are we charging them tuition right now? I know this is a little bit off.
We just made that decision today. We had been bantered back and forth, especially since we didn't know when school was going to get out or not, but we've just made that decision that no, we're not going to be doing that. Because
Okay.
we feel as much as our preschool teachers are part of the remote learning, et cetera, that as we know, so much of the preschool experience is that, you know, not unlike all of our other students, but there is such a, it feels different, and they have to kind of be there to get that experience. So, but anyway, the short answer is no.
Okay, but the expectation is still there for some type of remote learning with the
Absolutely.
preschool.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And
So I
was
think
gonna
this,
ask, oh, sorry.
go ahead. No, go
I was
ahead,
gonna
Dr.
ask
Gifford.
Mr. Galashaw to come, he's here just to
May I
explain a
approach the
little bit
podium?
more about the data.
May I come to the podium?
You
Please
may.
do.
Okay. Here we go. Thank you. I was listening to everyone, and I didn't want to overstep the conversation. Just to quantify and qualify that data. Data is a snapshot taken from the Google admin console.
Okay, that's what I was.
The
That's what I was
last
thinking.
7 days. Now, one thing that I know Mrs. Oliveira is, I just texted her. She's very proud of the extended learning site and the numerous hits that are there, which is actually the first phase of this pandemic education, the extended learning site. And we have thousands of hits on that. So this does not reflect what a student is doing. It's just a snapshot of them logging on the past 7 days, where those people are the omission of those 1,100 people for logging on. So it could tell a story, but it doesn't completely define the effort or the participation that the children are doing at this moment. I think it's a bigger story, as most data can be.
Sure, no, understood, and that's kind of what was my my thoughts, Mr. Galashaw, was that, you know, this is just one piece of data, and the other piece, though, is, you know, I guess the bottom line is, from my point of view, is I want to make sure that the Dartmouth Public Schools is reaching every single student.
Yeah.
That's.
And I think, Mr. Oliver, I can probably expand that from March 12th to see the activity of students of logging on from that point forward, to see if anyone is completely not there. As we know, 8 through 12 have their own Chromebooks. We handed out about 350 Chromebooks of the 600 people at the middle school from 6 and 7, and an additional, I believe, 200 or 300 at the elementary school, where we have a variety of people as well, students as well.
Yeah.
Just to get an idea. And just to give a quick update, we've had many of those pickup drop-off days. And then we've also done singletons for kids that have had problems with individual computers.
Absolutely,
We also
sure.
have the online help that they go to with the work order system. And also the principals are running that on a very, like, almost a weekly basis, where if someone was left out or has a problem or needs a charger. So there's that continuous cycle as well.
Okay. No, thank you, Mr. Galashaw, for chiming in. Just last but not least, I know I brought this up before in the past, and I think Tracy Oliveira was against it. However, I'm still, I assume right now we're not doing anything with any kind of handouts or paper packets. Is that correct, Dr. Gifford? Because I haven't heard anything brought up about that.
Yes, we have not done that, not in a general rule. I think a few special cases were made, but in general, no.
Okay.
And we haven't heard any more on it, to tell you the honest truth.
Sure. Okay. Well, it's disappointing, especially when 44 students at Cushman that probably don't, you know, could use some kind of other materials that, and I had asked that's not being done. So I do, that does.
We didn't do that, to tell you the truth.
Okay. Thank you.
I do want to just add, I just got some more, like Mr. Galashaw said about the enrichment page, which is extra. There were about over 3,000 logins there. So at least we're knowing they're looking at those. And also to Dr. Jenkins, I'm not sure. I just want to clarify that the May 1st deadline is for kids to request, to request that they can make some work up or resubmit. If they get that request in, which we can certainly re-emphasize to them, they then have all that time to make their plan to complete.
I do understand that, but my concern is that people have checked out till 5/4.
Yeah.
Right, that,
Understood.
and so that deadline falling before students
Sure.
are mentally checking in means that if there's a third of the students not checking in, they may miss that
Yeah.
one deadline.
Yeah, understood.
I don't want students to miss that opportunity.
Right, yeah. So we can certainly reemphasize that with our students. And if that's all on that, I have one final thing for tonight, and we have special guests coming to the podium.
John has a question.
Oh, I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Nunes does. Yeah, Mr. Nunes
Oh,
has
sorry.
a question.
Sorry, I didn't see that.
Nope, I'm good. No problem. I guess I'm gonna be the one that puts a fly in the ointment here, but that's okay. First and foremost, I'm totally disappointed that, we show 38% of our high school students, not logging in, and 29% of our middle school, where probably for argumentative sake, just about all of them now have a Chromebook. All of them at the high school and 8th graders have a Chromebook. The middle school, now has, I would think most of them for the 6th and 7th graders. So
Yes.
I'm a little disappointed, that these students have checked out. And my personal opinion, and this goes back to what Dr. Gifford said, and also a comment to what Shannon said, you're a little, the May 1st deadline is, as far as I'm concerned, is in concrete. These are all big boys and girls. And if they haven't taken the time to log into the system and they've decided to check out, and now all of a sudden Shannon, you're a college professor. If somebody comes running to you the day before a final exam and says, help, I got to redo this assignment. Well, you've had all semester to resubmit it, or help, that type of deal. I'm sorry, I can't buy into that. With regards to the passing of any course at the high school running, the 65%, that kind of means in the next, the 17 days of classes between May 4th and May 27th, because of weekends and Memorial Day and everything else, I think 17 days. That means they only have to do 11 days worth of assignments. I mean, I got a major problem here with that. We're not, we're almost, going to let them slide by, and that doesn't sit well for me. And my other question becomes is, as we go into this new, and again, I just printed this out tonight too, but as we go into this new extended learning and, additional information that we have, what are we doing? I mean, students, the past 6 weeks have been, not remedial, but reinforcements of what they've learned. And now we're going to teach them new stuff. What do we do if a student, and we may have that same issue with the Chromebook, don't get me wrong, but, Johnny or Susie walked out of school on, March 13th, March 14th, and, brought home what they needed to bring home and left everything else in their locker, and they haven't been able to get back into the school. How are we handling those? And I'm sorry if I've ranted.
Well, they really don't need other things for the lessons that are ongoing. So whatever they left, everybody has access with the devices that we've provided. The bigger question, I think what you're asking, is getting the schools cleaned out and emptied in lockers and all of that, which is going to be taken care of once we have more details on the governor's restrictions, health restrictions, et cetera. But any learning activities that the teachers are providing at this point in time would become remote and internet based, et cetera. Or a PDF sheet that they're posting, which is also being done.
Okay.
I just wanted to bring, Dr. Jenkins did have some comment in reply.
So I just want to respond to what Mr. Nunes said, because Mr. Nunes did ask a question about what I would say if a student came to me. And what I would say to my student is, how can I help you? Right? We're in the middle of a global pandemic. It is unprecedented in our history. Our students are struggling. I hear stories every day. They're worried about their parents keeping a roof over their head, food on their table. There's teenagers who are picking up extra shifts at grocery stores. They're worried about getting sick. They are struggling, right? And as an educator, my number one priority is making sure that every single one of my students is successful. So my first question to them is, how can I help? And how can I make sure that you make it through this, right? So my concern is not about punishing students. My concern is not about scolding students who are struggling. My concern and our concern should always be, how do we help these students succeed? And I am 100% for every ounce of flexibility that we can give children to make it through this crisis in a positive way. And I am glad to see that we are doing that. And I hope that we can be even more flexible in meeting their needs.
This is an executive session.
Dr. Karafotis?
Yeah, I would just like to echo what Shannon has said. We don't know. There are certainly some kids that are just saying, forget it. But there are a number of families that are really in very difficult places, socially, emotionally, financially. And it's just that I want to make sure we consider that whole social emotional piece. Some kids may not have anyone there at all to help them. They may not even know where to begin to do any of this. So we don't know what's going on in those homes. There are certainly lots of parents out there that are doing a lot of great support work. But if you're a single mom and you've lost your job and you have 3 children and they all want something at different times, you know, we have to factor that in. This is a very difficult time for people. I'm certainly sitting here as a retired person, and I think of all those people out there that are, let's not even just think of the economic. What about the pieces of how many of these people have lost, or they're frightened about what's going to happen to them? So, I mean, there might be multiple reasons why kids are not checking in. And maybe if we had enough resources, we could find out more about that. But I just let us be sensitive to that issue. We don't know why this is happening.
Christopher? Chris?
And to Dr. Karafotis's point, you know, one of the things that I'm hearing in my job and, you know, through my wife is that there's kids that are not home. They're, you know, they may have a device, they may have internet at home, but they're not home. Their parents are working during the day. They're in the healthcare, they're in the front line. So they're at their grandparents' houses. They're at relatives, aunts, uncles' houses. They don't know the first thing about technology. And trust me, I am all about technology and at the forefront of it, but that's some of the things that I'm hearing. Social emotional issues. I've heard of students that they don't like Zooms. There's hiding underneath blankets during the Zoom. They don't want to do the Zooms for whatever reason, social emotional. So with that being said, just something that just popped into my head as I'm sitting here listening to everyone is, with these new guidelines that are coming out through DESE, what would the harm be in, and maybe some building principals have already done this. What if we looked at, from maybe a building based, having Zoom meetings with parents, or almost like a webinar, not so much back and forth, but just a presentation by our building principals in Dartmouth to address everything that the expectations that we're moving forward, and acting as a resource as to how Dartmouth can help these parents and help these students get through this time. So I don't know if it's something we look at through the building level, something through the district level, but just an idea that I'm floating around that, because there is a lot of, you know, the parents, I hear parents finding out, because they emailed their student's teacher that, Johnny or Susie was supposed to be doing this work and they're not doing this work. So I don't know. It's just I guess over communicate with something like this, especially as things are continuing to evolve.
Yeah, I agree with that over communication. I also agree with what Dr. Jenkins was saying. Earlier, you mentioned the nagging and you know, being able to support your student. You know, it's not working here. You know, there's a lot of confusion. I see both ends here, and I see myself as a professional pretty engaged with what is going on and following along and reading up on all the guidance. And I still find it confusing. And, you know, we've got 3 different, you know, students in my house. I'm working, my husband's working outside of the house. And so it's like all hands on deck, you know. So it's been very, very tough. And, you know, I hear in my own kiddos, my oldest kiddo, you know, that May 4th date. So going back to what Dr. Jenkins said, that May 4th date is something she keeps saying. And there's a lot of, you know, she's a senior. And so there's a little bit of that social emotional stuff going on with the reality of what, you know, is happening with everyone. But there's been some movement, and there's been some, at first there was some reticence. Now there's like this movement around, I'm going to get to it. And so she is one of those students who will get to it, and I think will finish strong. But it's been a process of not pushing too much and not trying not to nag. And really, it's been a complex, and even for, you know, hearing it in the field, there's other repercussions that some of our more struggling students are actually doing better now because of the stresses with the anxiety around the school refusal. And so I don't know how that's impacting Dartmouth, but I'm hearing it on a more statewide level where students who were struggling are actually like reading at higher levels and really, you know, feeling safe within their home. So there's just, you know,
It's not easy.
there's going to be a lot of fallout with this. And I've heard from educator friends who are feeling like, well, I can't reach my more complex students. And what I say to them is, living it here, you know, my son may or may not have skipped school a few days this last couple of weeks, but having a Zoom on and hearing a voice and seeing a face and just having a familiarity around knowing those voices and knowing those faces it sort of is keeping him up to speed, whether or not he's completing the work to the degree that I'm able to help him do that. But so teachers who feel that this is just a really difficult way to reach those struggling students, just know that what you're doing, just by doing it, being there and reaching out is so helpful as a reminder of, you know, some may find it what they're missing and it might be a little bit more stressful hearing those voices, but for the majority of what I'm hearing and what I'm experiencing, it's just wonderful to have that connection and some pictures and some, you know, memories to share and stories to share, and just having the voice and having you reach out is just, I don't know, we're all in this together and we're going to get through it together. So, but thank you everyone for your comments around that. I know we had a special guest coming, right? I mean, Mr. Just is there, but I don't know if I should now turn it to Kate to see if we have any public comment. Would that be okay?
Sure. Is Kate here?
Yes, she's here. I see her.
I'm good with that,
She
Kathleen.
is here, yes.
Oh.
So we had one email, and I think it's more of a comment on what was said during one of the discussions. It comes from, if you just bear with me, Kathleen Simmons, and she writes, "Good eve. It was my understanding that Sarah Dekas was replacing Carl Robidoux."
Yes, that was announced already. So the
I'm
position
sorry.
she left is still open, and that's the one we're not, the assistant principal position we are not posting.
Thank you for that. And that's all that you have?
That is all I've received.
Okay, so I will turn it back over to you, Dr. Gifford.
Yes, so thank you for all your comments. I especially liked the suggestion Mr. Oliver made about the parent Zoom meetings. That might be a good and I think that would be good building based. Anyway, tonight we have, and I'm going to leave it to Mr. Galashaw once again to introduce our special guest. We wanted you to see what some of the teachers are doing with the Google Classroom. We had actually, I'm going to stop right now. I'm going to let Mr. Galashaw take over.
Yes, sorry for that awkward moment. I came in earlier to comment, and I didn't want to take myself off the screen in fears that something might go wrong. So I got a chance to crash your entire school committee meeting here at the podium. So that's okay. During the meeting, and you'll see in the recording, some faces came by quickly. Those were people in the waiting room. Those were our special guests. I hope to take a couple minutes of your time tonight to introduce some special people in the district that are working on the front line with technology and education. What we've done is an amazing thing in the state and in the country and the world, to have an online presence from March 12th or 13th that day till 3 or 4 weeks later, having a full submersion of technology and education. So that would not have been possible without the foresight and forward thinking of really the school committee as well as the superintendent to hire some people in the district called instructional technology specialists. So I wanted to introduce them to you and have them give a brief explanation of what Google Classroom is and to show the school committee as well as show the community what it is, the Google Classroom. And it's a really short kind of advertisement about Google Classroom so you can see what we're doing. And I also wanted to say that the data that you had provided before, if it leads to talking points, it's a wonderful thing. I think I have to produce some more data so you get a fuller picture of what's going on. As I go to these training classes, and as the instructional technology teachers will tell you, they're full in regards to training these teachers day and night on training sessions. Actually, I had 25 people come to my 7 p.m. training class last Thursday. I was surprised. I didn't know anyone would come out that at night to do that. But they are going to these training classes and learning how to do all sorts of technology. And with that, I'd like to introduce a few of them so they could show you Google Classroom. I'm going to start with the elementary school. I hope that was the proper order that I was going to do this. First, with one of our first tech teachers who's been around for many years, Trish Leary. Trish, if you could make yourself appear. Trish Leary is from the Quinn Elementary School. And Trish has been around for a long time, and she used to do instructional tech for the entire district, if that was possible, way back when. I don't know if is she out there. Okay, let me maybe I need to there we go. I'm gonna unmute her. And she's going to be accompanied by Potter's technology specialist, which is Sandra Chicka, who is from the Potter Elementary School, and she does that through Potter. And one of our newest just started this year, taking over for Josh Rodricks at DeMello School and DeMello and Cushman Schools is Liz Vosi, who just started this year. Josh Rodricks was drafted by the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, and Liz Vosi would be the player to be named later. So she would be that player. We picked her up on waivers. But is she out there? Let me see if I can turn that camera on as well. And there we go. So they're going to take over this. There's Liz. They're going to take over the screen. Trish and Sandy and Liz, could you take it from here and show us quickly, what do we see at a Google Classroom for elementary kids?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So I'm Trish Leary. I'm going to get started. I'm actually going to share my screen. And this is something that teachers have been doing through our remote learning as needed with their students if they're using any of our platforms, communicating with them. So host disabled. Mr. Galashaw, can you open up the screen sharing right now? It's disabled.
Oh, that would be me. Let me see.
Good job with your security preferences, Mr. Galashaw.
That's what I was
Right.
doing. I've been trying to control this. We were afraid, we didn't want to have any party crashers to our meeting. Miss Leary, is that available to you now?
It is, thank you.
Oh, there we go.
So hopefully a Google Classroom has come up. If anybody can kind of tell me if it's there, because I don't have my visual.
It is, yeah.
You can see it, great. So, you know, as everyone knows, and we've been having discussion tonight, there's a variety of tools that our teachers are using to communicate with students and provide learning experiences for them. And one of those tools is Google Classroom. And this platform is giving us a place to share curriculum materials and to communicate with our families and our students. So what we're going to share with you tonight is a brief overview of a sample Google Classroom. So what I show you here is not as extensive as what is being used in the classroom. There's many more materials posted, and you'll see a lot more on a working classroom. This one is used for teaching teachers how to use Google Classroom, as well as creating screencasting, things that we post in the Drive to share with parents, students, and all of our staff. So we use this for a lot of ways, but you'll see this one isn't a live classroom in terms of students accessing it. This is used for our courses that we're providing for teachers. When students log in, this is the default page they go into in the stream. And I'm just going to scroll down a little bit so you can see primarily what the stream is used for is announcements and just communicating with students. So you see, these are some samples that we've put in here in the stream where students can access some of the tutorials that we're providing for them, as well as just straight communication with them. Just let them know we're thinking about them. This is a spot where we just say hello, let them know we're thinking about them. And this class comment section you might see here for many of our classes is turned on so students can communicate with their teachers. Depending on which way they're communicating, the entire class might see the comments versus a private comment directly to their instructor. So this is just a very, very brief overview of what a stream might look like. You can share a multitude of different file types on here. So I tried to include a video, just a comment, scrolling back up, try to go slowly, a slideshow here. And again, the stream is primarily used for just announcements and just some communication with kids. I'm actually going to turn it over to Liz Bosey, who's going to talk about Classwork.
Great, thank you, Trish. So this Classwork tab in Google Classroom is really where all of the teachers and students can come together to have their work organized and put in a way that each student is getting the assignments and the enrichment activities and the communication methods that they need. So you can see in this example classroom, Trish has it set up. So there are different topics. So you can see the enrichment lessons are first. Some teachers will have their Zoom schedule there and their Zoom expectations. There's another section for important resources. And this is also a place where our social workers have put in like second step lessons and some social emotional activities. Our specialists, our art teachers and phys ed teachers and music teachers are using that tab down there to post their weekly lessons. And it's a way for two-way communication. So in each of these activities, when the teachers post them, students have the opportunity to either just look at something if it's posted as material, or if it's posted as an assignment, students can comment on it or even submit their work to teachers that way. But this is also a place for special education teachers to be posting resources that are general, that the whole class can see, or also specifically to the students that they service. And then the students who, only the students who get assigned an activity can see it. So if there are special education resources there, only the students who get that assignment will see it, and they will only see it for themselves. So it's really a place where all the teachers can come together and organize their materials for the students in their class in one place. And I think if Mr. Galashaw can invite the rest of our technology specialists in, I'm going to hand things over to the middle and high school.
All right. Mr. Galashaw's getting there. Let's see. The middle school has an instructional technologist named Temple Mitchell. And let me bring Temple in. Oh, I'm sorry. It was listed under Helen. Helen's her full name, but we call her Temple. That is her nickname. Temple, if you could introduce yourself.
Yes, hello. Temple Mitchell, and I work at the middle school.
And Jen Thomas is new this year for the high school. And Jen, are you there?
Yes, sorry, I needed to unmute myself. I'm here.
That's okay.
Thank you for the introduction. So I am kind of taking over the classwork piece of classroom to show you some of the more specific types of things that can be created by teachers for their students. While Liz focused on the material and arranging them by topic, I'm going to focus a bit more and quickly on the types of assignments. So at the high school level and at the middle school level, we tend to get back or assign things and also get them back from students who turn them in. The elementary school, a lot of it is more one-way communication, but we are actively assigning and collecting work from students all the time. So the way to do that is at the top of this classwork page, this button that says create. You're given a whole number of options, and depending on what your goal is for the type of work that you want to assign, you choose that. So you have just a basic assignment. You can assign a quiz directly within classwork. So if you click on the quiz assignment, it will actually allow to either attach a quiz that you've already created or to actually create a brand new quiz in Google Forms and attach it and have it sent out to your students. You can ask a question. So I know a lot of teachers right now, especially, are doing like question of the day just to keep up with kids are. And so you can ask a question and the kids respond, and you get formatted back nicely in like a little graph to see what the responses are. And then like Liz touched on, you can just material. So if you have, for example, a YouTube video you just want them to watch, there's no assignment attached to it. You can just click on material and upload a video or any type of material, really. And one really great feature is that you can reuse a post. So if you click on that and you're going to be asked which post you want to reuse, and you can assign that within the classroom you're in or any of your Google Classroom.
As you can hear.
Say you teach 5 different sections of it, you could reuse the post. Oh, can you hear me?
Some delay. We
Oh,
have some tech, yeah.
Okay, sorry, my internet is having issues. So did you hear me talking about reuse posts?
We did, but you chop up a little bit.
Okay, so the last feature that I just wanted to touch on quickly is that reuse posts, where you can reuse posts from classrooms and send them to any other classroom that you might have. So that just is a little time saver trick that we like to suggest for teachers. And I think that is just a really quick overview of how the classwork page works, both at the elementary level and the upper levels as well.
Okay. Temple, did you want to add something?
Sure. I'd like to talk about the grades first, Trish, rather than the, yes. So I'm hearing a lot of your concerns about reaching out to students kind of signing in and logging on. Here is where teachers are able to see their posts. So what you can see at the top there are different assignments that Trisha's put into this classroom. And along the left-hand side, you would see the students' names. Here is where the teachers are able to see the actual activity that's happening through their classroom. So it gives them an indication. If you were to see a live teacher's classroom that's going on right now, there would be check marks in all of these columns and rows, letting them know and being able to get a quick visual on who is opening the work, who is working on their assignments. And from here, they're also able to communicate back and forth. It really is, this Google Classroom really is a portal that is opened up for the students to be able to communicate back and forth with the teachers. So the grades gives them a great quick visual on kind of a check-in, who's doing what, and again, another portal for them to maybe make comments or repost or send it back to them and let them make more adjustments to their work. So the teachers are really liking this, and hearing your concerns with everyone having a Google Classroom and having assignments being posted, they're able to tap in, and this is another quick check on who haven't I heard from and who is, you know, continually on. The next thing I want to talk about is the People tab. This is where you would see all of the teachers are listed first, and then you would see the students beyond that. Neat thing about this is as soon as the students are logged on or part of your classroom, you are also able to, that's the middle tab or middle view there, it allows you to invite guardians to kind of join in on the efforts of what's happening in the Google Classroom. When a guardian is invited into a Google Classroom, they don't have the same access that the students have. They have what we call a summary. So they'll get the invitation, they're able to join in the classroom, and they're able to see, they can either suggest or actually request either a daily summary or a weekly summary. And what it does is get them involved in what's happening on the classroom, what's getting posted, and it's a notification that either comes daily or weekly. So it's really a nice way to have the families involved, but not too involved. They can see what their students need to be doing and can have a voice, kind of to let them know. I can see that you have some work. So it's been a great way to invite families in without really dipping into, they couldn't go into the grades. And also they can't get into any of the attachments, but they can see that something was sent out. So that those two areas, there's a lot of communication and great visuals that those that are part of the classroom can work with.
Okay, any questions? We just wanted to give you a quick overview that there's a lot being done. And I think the best way to reach all of these students is to have the teachers do that as they know their kids best. They know their students best. Do you have any questions? Sandy, you could take some of those questions.
I actually just want to thank all of you for letting us crash your meeting tonight. and yes, give you the opportunity to ask any questions from us.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Chris?
Nope, Chris.
Mr. Oliver. But he's muted.
You're muted, Chris.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Galashar and company, for joining us this evening. I got to say that I think 3/4 of what you're doing in Dartmouth, what we're doing in Dartmouth right now, would not be possible without the technology support that each and every one of you provides. So I think that's the first and foremost, that's paramount, and you do a incredible job, and I think you make Mr. Galashar look awesome.
That's right. I know he did dress up for this, so I look awesome anyway.
But no, in all honesty, I hear nothing but positive feedback from your colleagues and from teachers around the district. Just saying what a great resource you are and able to integrate and work with them as a technology coach and integrating technology into the curriculum. So I thank you for all the work that you're doing.
Don?
Okay, take Helen.
go ahead.
I'm good.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to mention that you had kind of thrown out an idea to another way to communicate with parents, maybe through the administration at each building. But no, and I think I can speak for all of us as the ITS, we're very, very willing and open to, to helping out that platform. However, it will work best if that's what you're looking for. Just wanted to mention that.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. John?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. And ladies and Mr. Galashaw, thank you very much for your time this evening. It's appreciated. It's obvious what's out there for our students to take advantage of and to do. And on the flip side also, it's a great way for people, residents of the town of Dartmouth, to see when they're giving us that technology money every year, what it's being used for, in my opinion. It's not frivolous stuff that we're doing. We're able to sit here and educate our students, in this day and age, and this pandemic that we have, to help take care of them and try and keep them current and educated. So again, my thanks to the ladies and to Mr. Galashaw for putting this together. And it was an interesting presentation. I did enjoy it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Karafotis?
I would just like to echo what everyone else has said in appreciation of all your efforts. With any tragedy, is maybe not any, but in something like what's happening today, it has really put pressure on all of us in education to become more familiar with all the opportunities out there in technology that we probably would have been a little hesitant to use prior. Many times we just don't think, oh, I can't do that. But because of this need for remote learning, we found, I think teachers have come up with certainly great resources and staff that you offer. But also now that they've used all these different types of technology, they'll be more apt to use it in a regular classroom. And that will just be one other tool that will enhance the learning of many. So thank you so very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So sorry, this is the age of Zoom. I've got medical emergencies upstairs in my house. So disappearing, that's what's going on. I think we've all been there. But I do really appreciate seeing what you guys have been doing. I've been teaching online at UMass Dartmouth for well over a decade now. I think people sometimes think it's fluffy or not rigorous, but done right, it can be done very well. And I think Dr. Karafotis is right. Teaching online has transformed my teaching, both online and face-to-face, things that I do. It's changed what I do as a teacher. And we have instructional designers at UMass. They play a similar role to what you guys do, and they're critical to doing what I do right. And also to Mr. Nunes' point about investments, right? I think a lot of times people think it's just teachers doing teaching, right? But I think you coming on is critical, everyone that are not, with the teacher in the classroom are to the success of our students. And so we're super happy that you guys are around and there to support our teachers as we do this. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I just reiterate what my colleagues are saying. Thank you very much. And thank you for bringing us through that Google Classroom. That was very helpful. Appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, so Dr. Gifford, do you have anything else?
I have nothing else. I figured we'd end on a very positive note.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
That was good.
I don't really have anything to report, and I'll put it to the committee to see if anyone else can share. Except I have one thing under sort of new business that came to mind that I thought I would just mention. Just bringing it to you that here we are, it's April 27th, and outside of this global pandemic, and another year, we would have reorganized the committee. And so while I'm perfectly happy to remain as the chair, I just wanted to put it to all of you, thinking, it's been a pleasure to serve, and I would be happy to continue to serve in this capacity until the town decides on elections and all of that. However, I just thought I would bring it to you to see how you felt, and if anyone felt a certain way about us thinking a little bit about reorganizing prior to. Does anyone have any thoughts about that, or Dr. Jenkins?
Well, that was the new business that I was going to bring up to have that conversation, because I know being chair is more work than being a regular school committee member, and being a chair during a pandemic, I'm sure, is just extra on top of that. So, I mean, I don't have really strong preferences either way, but I'm, fine with if you want to step down. I mean, I don't think we want to do it this meeting. We could put it on the agenda for the next meeting. If everyone wants, I don't have strong opinions either way, but I was thinking along the same lines, whether we should have that conversation.
Mr. Nunes, I think.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I agree. Whichever way we go on is fine with me. I know you and I had a conversation on this a couple of weeks ago, and however we do it is fine. I'm, not trying to rush you out or anybody else in type of deal. Whatever the committee is good with is fine with me.
Anybody else had there? Was that Chris? Did Chris do
Yeah, it was me. I'm gonna say the same thing. I'm okay either way. I agree. I'm sure you've got a lot going on right now, Kathleen, as we all do, and this is just one more thing. Been there, done that. I can appreciate everything that I think we all can appreciate everything that you're doing during this time, trying to just balance another plate. So yeah, I'm okay with putting it on the next agenda, and we can take it from there, I guess.
Yeah. And also just thanking Dr. Karafoulis for sticking with us through this time.
I think we should nominate her.
Yeah, I know you nominated me after my first year. I wasn't sure. I never got to be chair.
Yeah, no, I mean, let's put it on the committee. Let's put it on the agenda for next. I'm happy to remain, but in talking with Mr. Nunes, I am aware that if someone is, however it works out, ready and willing to step into the role, I do know that I'm kind of on your time right now. So I'm happy either way. I'm happy to remain, but let's add it to the agenda and
no biggie.
Next meeting. Anyone else? Any other anything to share, Mr. Nunes?
Yeah, I've got just a couple of quick things, Madam Chair. And again, like Dr. Gifford said, to kind of end on a good note, the Dartmouth School Music Association sewers, and these are the people that sew all the costumes for the indoor shows for the color guard and the dancers and the performers and that. Of course, their season got cut short when everything, all the circuits all shut down, and they didn't miss a beat. They just swung right into making these masks for everybody that you're seeing. And, there's a lot of other groups, a lot of other individuals that have done that. But, the last time I saw an account from the Music Association website, Facebook, they were up over 3,000 of these masks that they've made and handed out to, first responders and, people of that nature. So just a hats off to them for what they've done. And, again, all volunteer. They've had people donate the material. They happen to run short of the elastics for them, and all of a sudden somebody showed up with a huge amount of elastic to put in them. So, just a thanks to them for what they're doing.
Yeah, fantastic.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you for mentioning. Anyone else? No? So our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, May 18th. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn into executive session to discuss negotiations with union personnel, not to come back to open session.
Good job. So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Oh, you're on mute.
Kathleen Amaral,
Yes. Yes.
Chris Oliver,
Yes.
Carol Carafotis,
Yes.
Shannon Jenkins,
Yes.
John Nunes.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Take
See you
care.
in a little-
Stay healthy.
Yeah.
See you in a little bit.
See you in a
See
bit.
you in a minute.
All right.
Jim, can you send me the link for the executive session, please?
Who sent it out?
I didn't. I lost.
I think
I lost the whole-
Kathleen,
Kate did.
Kathleen sent it.
Kate did?
Kate sent.
Okay.
Okay.
I lost a bunch of